Hello everyone and welcome to another in this series of guides to the Contention DCS server, where today we are going to be looking at the Tactical Commander role. This is a role that can be granted to you to give you a little bit additional options on top of a normal JTAC role which is open to everybody. Mostly this involves controlling units. I won't be going back over how to control units with combined arms, since I've already done that in a previous video. Here I'll just be focusing on what you can do in the Tactical Commander role that you can't do using the JTAC role. Do note you do need combined arms for either of those roles. So the Tactical Commander slot does have some rules of its own. The first few are just reiterations of server rules, in that whenever using the Tactical Commander slot, or just in general, you have to make sure all units are being kept in the open, away from trees and buildings. So just like with CTLD, just like with the JTAC slot manual control, you can't move your units next to buildings to hide them, you can't move them into tree lines to hide them. Obviously, sometimes the terrain does dictate that you have to move through a tree line or you have to move through a city as the only way to get your units where they need to be. That is fine, but you need to make sure your units are continuously moving through those cities, moving through them to the other side as fast as possible. Do not linger in the cities. Equally, you cannot move units dropped by other players without their express permission. Normally, people are very, very happy about this. You just need to give a call out over SRS, just asking people if you are allowed to use their units. As I said in the Combined Arms video, this is normally absolutely fine with most people, they're happy to, but they might have been put specifically where they are for a very particular reason. You don't want to mess up someone else's plans, so only move other people's units if they've told you that you can. And finally, from the general set of rules, you cannot move units that are protecting a certain location out of that location. So all units that are spawned by the server within an airfield, FARP, factory, etc., you cannot move those units outside of the inner circle of that particular site. You can move them around the site, but you can't move them out of that site. Airfield defenders are meant to defend airfields. They're not meant to be sent over to somebody else's airfield. Now, all of that we've come across previously with CTLD and Combined Arms video, but Tactical Commanders do have some rules of their own. One is going back to those units spawned by the server, so these are your airfield defenders, your FARP defenders, factories, depots, etc. All of that lot. You cannot path those units. You can manually take control and drive those units around if you need to reposition them within an airfield. That is fine, but you can't path those units. The reason for this is that pathing these units causes a massive upset on the server side. Basically, they all get confused, it moves every unit, it just creates an absolute mess, so don't do that. Equally, we can't use the Tactical Commander pathing options for any AWACS units, tankers, boats or ships, cargo planes, drones or bombers. This includes both pathing these and changing their ROE, states, radar settings, altitude or speed. Really leave those units completely alone. The server settings take care of them. When you start messing with them, they get really, really messed up very, very quickly. And then finally, when you are using the pathing system, do try and use road pathing wherever possible. We'll go through this a little bit later in this video, but where possible, keep your units to the roads, especially over long distances. Again, this is not always going to be possible. Sometimes your units will not be able to take a road, for instance, if they have to turn off a road to head towards an enemy capture zone. That's absolutely fine, but make sure you keep them on the road as much as you can. You can tell that you're issuing an order for road pathing, as the little pathing symbol will be green when you're putting it down. More on that later. So next up, how do you actually get access to the tactical commander slot, because this is locked by default? Well, what you need to do is apply on the SPS Discord server. This is the official Discord for this server, and once you are in it, what you need to do is go down to bot commands. You can also get information on all of this in DCS bot info. What you need to do, first of all, is link your Discord account to your DCS account. In order to do this, go to the bot commands tab, type /link me, and then what you will do is get a code from the bot. You then copy that code, then when you're in the server and in the game, paste that code into the in-game DCS chat. That will then link your DCS account to the server account, and that gives you access to all sorts of bits and pieces like statistics that you can bring up on the Discord server, and notably for our purposes is required to get access to the tactical commander role. Once you've done this, if you go down to create new ticket, you can then create a ticket to apply for the tactical commander role. Do make sure you're familiar with all of the rules before doing this, but I've just gone over those a bit earlier, so just go back there if you need a refresher. Now, your application does need to be approved by one of the staff members, and do just be patient with them. They're a limited number, they are human, and they are all volunteers, so they do a very good job at getting back rather fast, but do just be patient if they're particularly overworked or not available at the time. Might just take a little bit to come through, but don't worry, they will get to your application. Don't bug them. But once that's been granted, they will let you know, and then you are free to select the tactical commander role from the menu, just as you would with the JTAC role or selecting any other player slot within your team. So then, just briefly, what are the basic controls here? So you can absolutely jump into the tactical commander slot and use it to drive vehicles just as you would with the JTAC slot. Just select the vehicle, and then up in the top corner you can take control. This is exactly the same as the JTAC controlled vehicles that we went through in a previous video, so I won't be going through that again. What the tactical commander can do is get some more options. If you left click on any vehicle, what you'll see in the lower right, in addition to your normal info panel, you get this control panel here, and this you can use to select a variety of different options. For example, you can set the path if you want your vehicle to start moving. Simply click Set Path, click on where you want it to go. You can left click on several to create a more complicated path, and then when you right click, it will generate the path based on that. What you can then do is set the speed of the vehicle. So in this case, if I set this up, it won't exceed its maximum speed, but it'll do its best. So here we have our little vehicle is trying to drive around. What we can also do is set its rules of engagement, whether that's hold fire, return fire, or fire. So in this case, I'll set it to free fire. So the SA-8 here is staying a little bit still because it's trying to engage targets, but the BMP here, I've set it to path, and it is quite happily moving along its path right now. So you can see here I've set it to auto fire, and it is indeed trying to engage the various targets that it can see. Same deal with our tank here, I can just get it to fire at will. And so here we can see our tank is happily engaging the nearest targets. It's engaging the group of infantry. It'll automatically pick the best weapon for the job. You can see here it's taken out high priority target first, the BMP over there, and is now just working its way through the infantry. And finally, what can be quite useful is this little restrictions panel. This sets some additional options for your units, very useful in particular for radar-based SAM systems, as you can toggle the radar on and off here. So for example, if I wanted to hide this shilker from incoming radar sensors, I can just turn off its radar. Equally very useful for SAMs, you can restrict the max launch range if you don't want them to fire at their maximum range. If instead you want them to lure the enemy a little bit closer, you can absolutely do that. Now if these are members of a group, you can click the apply to group and it will apply these settings to the entire group. Really useful if you've got multiple radar units in one group that you're trying to put silent, especially if, say, a enemy seed operation is coming in. You've seen that. You want to silence an entire SAM site with both its track radar and its search radar. Turning off the radar and clicking apply group is a very quick way of doing that. Should also be noted, if you've got a group of vehicles, they will move together. You just have to select one of them, click select path just as before, right click as normal, and then off they go. Also being nicely demonstrated here is when you path vehicles over a long distance, they will attempt to do their best to travel by road where possible in order to make maximum speed. As you can see, our lead vehicle here is moving out and the rest are catching up to it. Now you can also change the formation, so on long distance movement, just leave them in convoy, they'll stick to the road very nicely. But if you do want them in a different formation for engaging the enemy, you can absolutely set these formations. And so here I've set this to a line formation, very good for attacking an enemy position if you've got multiple units there. So there we go, although the lead vehicle is trying to make its way along the path, see all the others are in line formation. Obviously this is going to be a bit awkward right now because I'm transporting through a city, so they are going to get very much confused and stuck and slow down as they go through. So if you're just moving, stick them in line, but when it does come to the final push on the attack, you can absolutely use these formations. So you see here as they're coming through the city, they will navigate around as best they can, but obviously it's going to be a bit tricky for them depending on the terrain. That's disrupted the whole formation there, but they do get back into formation. The lead vehicle will slow down, so that is certainly an option that you can bear in mind. And then finally, this server does have some additional options for the tactical commander role that are not available by DCS. Right now, these are ways that you can put down markers on the map, very obvious markers, to help coordinate your team as a whole, putting down instructions to attack, defend, do seed operations, things like that. Now, yes, you absolutely can do this without using this system. You can give instructions over SRS just as you would as a GCI. The disadvantage there is, well, not everybody is on SRS. Those people who are on SRS might not hear you, and anyone joining after you've given the instruction won't be aware that you are trying to gather forces for a particular area. This way you put a large marker on the map that everyone can see very easily when they push the F10 menu. Additionally, yes, you can put down the normal little DCS circular markers just as normal, but these are very, very easy for people to miss on the map, particularly when there are a lot of markers around. People aren't going to be going around clicking every one. This gives you something very, very obvious printed on the map that everyone will absolutely see and draws their attention. Really good for coordinating large team-wide efforts to defend or attack a particular point. There are several different options of labels you can put down. You can put down an attack, defend, a seed, cap, anti-ship or strike label down. Only one of each can exist at a time and it will last for an hour once placed. In order to put them down, when you're in the tactical commander slot, go to the in-game chat tab and type hyphen and then the type of strike that you want to put down. So in this case I'm doing hyphen defend. You can also put down attack, seed, cap, anti-ship or strike. You will then get a code given to you as a reply from the bot within the chat. What you can then do is go to your F10 map, put down a map marker where you want the instruction to appear, and then on that map marker put down the code that is given to you. So in this case I'm told to type /defend and then the number code, and so that's exactly what I type into my message. Once you've given that label on your marker, simply click off of it and it will then process that and turn your little marker into one of these map markers. Small restrictions on using this is attack markers have to be placed on enemy airfields or FARPs. Defend markers have to be placed on friendly airfields or FARPs. They will automatically be removed if that airfield or FARP flips sides. The seed cap objectives you can place wherever you want them to, wherever would be appropriate. Anti-ship objectives technically can be placed anywhere, but put them in the water next to enemy ships to help guide your team in. And strike objectives can be placed on enemy command and control and industrial center targets. I would say it's a good idea when placing these down to also give a call out on SRS at the same time, so that everybody does know about this strike, know that you are organising it, and that everybody knows to check their F10 map and see where you've placed down this marker. This is really a tool to help you with normal GCI operations rather than something to replace it. So that really is that. That is the TACCOM system. If you have any questions, please do leave them down below. Otherwise, this series is starting to draw to an end. If I have missed anything in particular that you want me to go over, please do leave them down below. Otherwise, there'll just be a couple more videos and then this series will be wrapped up. I am planning on doing the more in-depth walkthrough videos in the future that have been suggested a couple of times. Those will be worked on soon, just not quite yet. But until then, remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers!